The Federal Reserve controls the money supply of the United States. It sets interest rates that affect every mortgage, every loan, every savings account on the planet. It has never been fully audited, and it is not a government institution. This is not a conspiracy theory. These are facts written into its founding legislation that most Americans have never read. The year is 1910. America is the fastest growing economy on earth, but its banking system is chaotic. Bank panics are frequent. In 1907 alone, a single speculator nearly brought down the entire financial system. Something had to change. And so, 7 men boarded a private train from New Jersey. They traveled in secret to Jekyll Island, a private retreat off the coast of Georgia, owned by the most powerful banking families in America. They used only first names, no last names allowed, no press, no public, no Congress. Over 9 days, they drafted the legislation that would become the Federal Reserve Act of 1913, and then they went home and pretended the meeting never happened.
The Jekyll Island meeting stayed secret for 22 years. One participant only revealed it in his memoir in 1935. Here is what was created and why it matters. The Federal Reserve is structured as a network of 12 regional banks. These regional banks are not owned by the government. They are owned by member banks, private commercial banks, which means the institution that controls America's money supply is privately owned by the banks it is supposed to regulate. The Fed's chairman is appointed by the president, but its operations, its decisions, its internal finances are not subject to congressional audit in the way other government agencies are. In 2010, a partial audit was finally forced through Congress. It revealed that between 2007 and 2010, the Federal Reserve had secretly loaned out $16 trillion to banks in America and abroad without public knowledge, without congressional approval. $16 trillion. The entire U.S. GDP in 2010 was $14 trillion. The Fed lent out more than that in secret. To understand why this structure exists, you need to understand what the Fed actually does. When the government needs money, it issues treasury bonds. The Fed buys those bonds by creating new money digitally from nothing. This is called monetizing the debt. And it is the mechanism by which inflation enters the economy. Every dollar created this way slightly dilutes the value of every dollar already in existence, which means every time the Federal Reserve expands its balance sheet, it is effectively taxing every person who holds dollars. Without a vote, without legislation, without public debate. This is not illegal. It is the designed function of the system. Designed in a secret meeting on an island by the banks that benefit from it most. So the real question is not, is the Federal Reserve corrupt? The real question is, was it ever designed to serve you? Between 2020 and 2022, the Federal Reserve created more money than in its entire previous history combined. The result was the highest inflation in 40 years. Then, to fight the inflation it created, the Fed raised interest rates at the fastest pace since 1980, which caused the regional banking crisis of 2023. Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic. And the Fed's response was to create more money to bail them out. The cycle is not a bug, it is the feature. Crisis creates the justification for expansion. Expansion creates the next crisis. And through each cycle, the institution grows more powerful and less accountable. 7 men on a private train to a secret island. 9 days of meetings that shape the next century of American financial history. And a system that has never been fully audited. You can disagree about whether this is good or bad, but you cannot disagree about what it is. Subscribe if this changed how you see the economy, because the next episode goes even deeper into the institutions that shape your financial life without ever asking your permission.